Hi all, it's Cambita, also known as the Excited Bull, coming to you from Norman, Oklahoma. Today we're going to be talking about a book I just finished called The Wise and the Wicked by Rebecca Podos. I got this book originally to get a better grasp of Russian culture, specifically Russians who immigrate to the United States, and like what they teach their kids, what traditions they keep, those kind of things. After I'd started the book, I didn't do my research before. And after I started the book, I noticed the picture on the flap and started reading it, and realized that the author is American and does not appear to have any first-hand or familial experience with this either. But I was already invested. I was going to read it. So that's how we got here. So the overall review, I like this book, but I didn't love it. I'll give it 3 stars, which for me means I liked it, and I would recommend it to people who like this genre, but I'm probably never going to own it, and I'm probably never going to read it again. The main detractor for me is too large of a number of the side characters feel very two-dimensional. They don't feel very fleshed out. They feel like they are there just as props to the story and not as real life people with their own stories. I fully acknowledge that that is a very difficult balance. Very difficult balance between fleshing out your side characters and not bogging down your story with a whole bunch of extraneous details about your side characters. I do get that. But it just didn't hit. It just didn't land. It just, whatever phrase. I'm just throwing out words now. It didn't quite find the right balance for me. But I enjoyed the Russian folktales that were included. The familial dynamic was very interesting, as well as the relationship with Dov I enjoyed. There was some great representation for LGBTQ plus characters, and it always wins me over. If they're handled nicely, if they're handled well, I tend to like them because they're a part of our world, and they're not seen enough. Okay, so the overall storyline is Ruby is part of a family, the Chernavaskis. Who came from Russia and were once a very powerful family. But all that remains of the power is that the women in the family around puberty get a glimpse of their time, which is the moments leading up to their death. It is an accepted fact among the family that there is no way to alter this time, and to try is foolish. And then Ruby's great aunt. I've been listening to a lot of things that say aunt instead of aunt, but we've always said aunt in my family, so I feel like I'm almost like hybridizing the word lately. Aunt. Her great aunt dies, and through the traditions of the family, they realize that her vision of the moments leading up to her death and her death were not the same. So Ruby and her cousin Cece begin digging into the family's past, the history, the folklore, to try and figure out how their great aunt changed her fate, to see if they can also change theirs. So that's all I'll do really pre-spoiler talk, because I'm just going to get into a couple of bits that I really liked in the spoiler talk. Overall, I really enjoyed the book. If you like contemporary YA with a little bit of magic flair, go for it. It's a great little story. And even if you don't, neither is my genre of choice, YA or contemporary fiction, and I still enjoyed this book. So give it a go. So now we're going to go into spoiler territory, where I'll talk about specific bits that I liked a little more. or things that I didn't like, as with my first point, which is, while I liked a lot of the things about Cece, the cousin, sometimes it did feel as if she were just in the book to be the representation for the lesbian rep, and to just help Ruby out of story holes that she needed to wiggle out of, kind of thing. She didn't feel like she had her own story, and for her to be the sidekick character, that's a little more important to me, that she have her own voice instead of just being not a parrot or a mirror, but a prop to Ruby's story. So I definitely liked Dav. I think from all of the reviews I've also read and everybody's comments I've seen on this book, Dav is one of the favorites. He is handled impeccably. He's a female to male transition character. And he is the primary love interest for Ruby. And the open and frank conversations about what his transition means, aspects like binders, and having to have conversations about what we want during sex. And to me, that was what sold me on this book. So romance in YA is why I don't read YA. I hate pages and pages of I like them, but they don't like me, and then other person, I like them, but they don't like me, and you're just like, Jesus, just do something already. I'm cynical. I just don't like it. It drives me insane. Or the other thing that tends to happen is one or both of the romantic characters in the YA story sends up so many red flags that I just become furious that anybody would be like, oh, he stalked me, it's so romantic. No, red flags. Don't date those people. It just drives me a little crazy. But there was just the right amount of teen romance angst, which means nearly zero. Oh, thank you. I know it's not that realistic. I went through the teen angst romance stuff myself. Trust me, there are notebooks right up here on top of this shelf full of teen angst, I love them, they don't love me poetry that the world will never see, and I will probably go through those notebooks and burn one day. But it's just not what I enjoy reading as a 32-year-old woman. And on the having frank conversations about sex and what we like, I think it was just, it made my heart so happy, because so often, especially when it's first time sex in books or movies or shows, it's portrayed as very non-verbal and everything's instinctual and passionate, and it happens, but sex with someone you can communicate and have that open and frank dialogue with is so much better. And I loved that there was this portrayal in a YA novel to tell young people who are possibly getting ready to have sex for the first time that talking to your partner, telling them what you want, telling them what you need is paramount to having a good time with it, in my opinion. The Evelyn character, Evelina, I had tried looking it up. I'd already returned the book to the library when I wrote out my notes, and can't honestly remember, but it's the mom character. Mom leaves when Ruby is very young. I can't remember. And she's taken care of by her two older sisters and the great aunt Paulina. Ruby's mom comes back when Paulina dies. And it's very interesting. I thought it was a very interesting way of portraying the woman who betrays family for power without heavy focus on how could a mother leave her children. Yeah, I thought it was interesting. I thought it was well done. And the slow reveal kind of how things came out, I did feel was very good. And the first 3 quarters of the book, the first quarter, second quarter, and third quarter, I love. And then we get to what is supposed to be the big showdown between Ruby's mom and Mrs. Oh, I wrote it down. Mahalels. And it's this big showdown, and we've built up to this point, and it's going to be epic, and there's going to be magic, and it's going to be awesome. And we get like just a little tiny bit of it. And then we rush off to go talk with Cece and Talia and Dov and Ruby. And then we're done. So I know that doesn't count for a quarter of the pages, but it's the quarter of the overall plot storyline. It's the climax and the end. And it all felt like maybe the author had 50 to 100 more pages written for that bit, and it got cut out or something. I don't know for sure how that happened, but it was the most disappointing part of the book, is that it felt very abrupt. Now, I did poke around on the internet some and find out that it looks like Rebecca Potos wanted this to be the first book in the series, and so that is a little more typical for a serial book where it drops off so that you are left wanting more. But from all accounts that I was able to find, it's not going to be a series book. And so to me, that's always the risk. And something to keep in mind as I do my own writing, that you want the book to stand alone on its own in case it can't get the series that you want it to have. Yeah, because that ending is just, oof. It's a little rough. Overall, very good YA teen novel. Not one I'll ever own or probably read again, but one I'd recommend. And like I said earlier, I say I recommend it to people who like this genre, but this is not my genre of choice as a general rule. The magic's the only thing that I read typically. The YA I usually skip because the romance, and the contemporary I usually skip because it doesn't always appeal to me. But I enjoyed the crap out of this little book, and I do recommend it. So we're trying out this new where I kind of break down different sections where I have all of this. Anyway, this is my first book talk episode, so hopefully you all like it. Or it's my first book talk episode since the reboot of this channel. Hopefully you all like it. I'm nearly done with The Night Masquerade, which is the 3rd book in the Binti trilogy, and I'll be doing that. I decided, because they're short, they're almost novellas on their own, the 3 books in the trilogy, so I decided I would do a book talk for all 3 once I finish the 3rd. So keep an eye out for that here soon. Like, subscribe, bell, all that fun stuff. Bye, y'all.